Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the government kicks off the second phase of COVID-19 vaccination for minors. And as COVID-19 cases continue to decline, the health department sees the possibility of downgrading Metro Manila's alert level to 2. Navotas Mayor Toby Tiangco joins us live. Also, a health expert laments the slow vaccination rollout and warns of expiring vaccine supplies. Health reform advocate Dr. Tony Leachon tells us more live. The World Health Organization is keeping a close eye on 20 sublineages of the highly infectious Delta COVID-19 variant. Among these, the AY.4.2, first identified in the United Kingdom. Government data show the subtype account for 6% of the country's cases in the last week of September. Experts are still looking into its transmissibility. The health department says it has not detected the Delta subvariant just yet. Also, the government eyes to increase the vaccination rate to 1.5 million shots a day. But the question is this doable? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have health reform advocate Dr. Tony Leachon. Dr. Tony, welcome back to The Source. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Pinky. Good morning.
I first want to talk about this 1.5 million vaccinations a day. That should be the target, according to Secretary Galvez, for us to have a happy Christmas. However, when we look at the daily average rate, it's about 380,000, sometimes 400,000, and at one point, umabot pa po yan ng 500,000. Is this 1.5 million vaccines a day doable?
It would be a stretch considering hindi tayo nag-average ng more than 1 million. Hirap na nga for, let's say, 500,000 at nagdi-dwindle yan. And then, ang problema, Pinky, December is almost a half month considering, if you remember, pagka December is celebratory na mga tao. So I don't think it will be accomplished yung 1.5 million a day. And there's a distribution channel also problem in terms of the cold chain facilities in the countryside. Take note that ang Pfizer, kailangan natin ng cold chain facilities. Now, why we are doing very well in the NCR, according to the National Task Force, na 80%, but our national average is 32%. So, deploying the vaccines in the countryside, particularly sa mga areas na mataas ang cases like Northern Luzon, Zamboanga Peninsula, or Negros will be a challenge deploying. Ang average ng countryside would be 30 to 31%. And I don't see it will be happening. Sorry for being realistic about it, but if we have not achieved even 1 million, how can we achieve with the 1.5 million in a day? So it will be a stretch for the government to do that.
Dr. Tony, where do you see the problem lies? Because if we talk about vaccines, it seems like the arrival of the vaccines doesn't seem to be a problem right now. In fact, the last data I saw is that we've received something like, if I'm not mistaken, 80 million or 90 million vaccines. But saan ho ba yung problema? Kasi if we look at if we focus on Metro Manila, that doesn't seem to be a problem right now because the latest data in NCR is that 90% have been vaccinated on their first dose, and I believe over 80% ata na vaccinate na ng second dose. Let's look at the provinces. What is the challenge there? Is it because they don't have the storage facility, the cold storage facility?
No, the problem has been as early as 6 months ago And then 2 months ago, I was at the Senate and at the lower house at the Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Congresswoman Charod Garin. And the problem there, as articulated by Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, there was a bottleneck, or even up to now, at the National Task Force, because the National Task Force is regulating the vaccines that will be rolled out or released to the LGUs and the private sector. So yesterday, dalawang congressman ang nagsabi, Congressman Angelica Natasha po and Congressman Lawrence Fortun from Agusan, saying again that they should actually release these unsigned documents, and even the ULAP, no, the League of Governors as well, ang nagsasabi na yung bottleneck tanggalin na so that the LGU in the private sector can order directly from the manufacturers so that they can operate not as a bottleneck but on a separate express lanes, so that it will also be bought by other sectors. The other one is regulatory, Pinky. In the
So
States
before
kasi,
you go, so Dr. Tony, before you go to the regulatory part, no, what you're saying is panahon na para i-drop na po tong tripartite agreement. Kailangan pwede ng LGU to the pharmaceutical company, diretso na. Is that what you're saying?
that's correct. You have to drop the multi-party agreement.
Agreement,
Kasi, oo, you have to drop it kasi nagkakaroon ng bureaucratic red tape doon sa area yon. And mas mabilis yan kung diretso na silang o-order or even the private sector. So you will have more vaccination sites rather than the government na magkakaroon ng bottleneck sa waiting time. In the States kasi ginagawa nila, Pinky, is that they have more vaccination sites and fewer persons so that you're actually reduce din yung super spreader events, but at the same time, more agile ka and faster in terms of the vaccination.
But Doc Tony, why is there a bottleneck? Why are the vaccines reaching the provinces or other regions fast enough?
Yeah, because the National Task Force kasi is imposing the tripartite agreement or the MPA. Na it will be signed first by Secretary Galvez, I think Secretary Duque and Secretary Dominguez. Now, doon sa Senate hearing, when I presented with Secretary Galvez, and I think Yusek Mirna Kabotahe, the congressmen were asking na i-release na ito. So yun ang nangyari, but 2 months na yun, hindi pa rin. Again, ni-reiterate ng 2 lawmakers yesterday para mapabilis sila. And it will need 6 months Pinky, of preparation, 3 to 6 months based on experience and the DOH template to prepare the community for vaccination, particularly in archipelago setting. It's difficult. Kaya ngayon, kita mo ang Zamboanga Peninsula may surge, Negros may surge. Because the concentration natin, of course, nandito tayo sa business capital, which is actually contributing. Ang NCR kasi control natin 30 to 40% of the cases. That's why we see a downward trend ng cases natin because we increase our positivity rate, which is right now, I think, nasa 8%, and our vaccination rate, as you mentioned, approaching 80 to 90%. Okay.
Oh, let's talk about the Moderna vaccines. There is a report that about thousands of Moderna vaccines is it 40?
400,000.
400,000 Moderna vaccines will expire in November. Ang ibig sabihin po niyan, Doc Tony, kung totoo yung 400,000 Moderna vaccines na mag-e-expire na, kailangan po ngayon, October 22, until, the last week of October, kailangan na pong gamitin yan.
Tama po yun. That's why I think, I don't know if this is related to the pronouncement of the government, that the third dose for the healthcare workers will happen in November. Kasi if the healthcare workers, majority on March 1, Kasi ang choices lang naman ng Sinovac and a little of Astra before. Kung March 1 yun, Pinky, their 6 months will actually be October or November. Like for me, Astra na gamit ko noon, I'll be on my 6 months. And kung Moderna ka or any vaccine, you know that the antibodies will actually reduce by on the 6 to 8 months. So it should be used right now. Pero while we discussing this, wala tayong guidelines right now for the booster shots, pinag-iisipan pa. And while in the States, in the US, ang FDA and CDC may guidelines na, ang Singapore may guidelines na, ang Israel may guidelines na. At least man lang for the mRNA vaccine, this can be actually be a good third dose for the healthcare workers and for those high-risk patients para hindi naman siya masayang. So that particular regulatory approval should be actually be in place so that we can use that.
And let me just say also, Dr. Tony, that it was about maybe 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, I spoke to Dr. Ronchin Solante, and that they already gave the recommendation on this booster shot, him being a member of the vaccine panel. But this had to go through, apart from the vaccine panel, kailangan pang pumunta to sa all-expert panel, and then from there, an approval from possibly the DOH or maybe the National Task Force. That's a good point you're raising, sir, dahil yung nagpabakuna po ng Sinovac ng March, yung second dose po nila ng April, naka 6 months na po sila by October or November. In other words, they should be getting their boosters this month or the latest sana next month.
That's correct, Pinky. Dapat mag-booster na tayo kasi in this time na may Delta variant ka at meron pa mga forthcoming variant pa, dapat yung nag-Sinovac will actually heed the advice of the WHO. If they want Sinovac third dose, which na-recommend ng SAGE, right?
WHO
and then they can
SAGE.
actually, Sinovac. And then if they want the US FDA approval, then you can use the mRNA vaccines.
Right.
Yesterday, Pinky, you mix and match booster doses in approval ng FDA panel. And today, CDC will approve the FDA panel. Once na na-approve ng CDC through the CDC Director Rochelle Walensky, it will be a US policy. So dapat ganun ang gawin natin.
Yeah. If we were to follow the latest data coming from the United States. All right, just very quickly, Dr. Tony, I have 30 seconds left. Are there is a sub-lineage or another variant of the Delta? This has been found in the United Kingdom, and as I mentioned a while ago, 6% of their infections, ito na nga pong sub-lineage, sub-variant ng Delta?
Well, they call it sub-variant. They call it the AY42, and they say that it is 15% more infectious than the original variant. That's why 15%. 15 times by the way, and they say that it's right now not a variant of concern. They're monitoring it, and the other name given by the former US FDA commissioner Scott Gottlieb, this is a Delta Plus, so they're monitoring right now. There's one case right now in Israel coming from a boy who traveled from Europe to Israel. Alam naman natin, dahil melting pot ng US, kailangan bantayan din nila ang borders. But just to alert everyone, meron na rin sa UK, so we should be monitoring our borders as well.
All right. Health Reform Advocate Dr. Tony Leachon. Sir, thank you so much for your time and take care of yourself.
Thank you, Pinky, and stay safe.
Thank you. And coming up, let's talk about the second phase of vaccination of minors that kicks off today. Nabotas Mayor Toby Kianco will be with us. Please stay tuned.